The Galactic Military Academy floated in the black silence of space. It was a massive station, built from metal and glass, spinning slowly around a dying star. Thousands of cadets from hundreds of alien species trained here. They learned to fight. They learned to survive. They learned to become weapons for the Galactic Council. Park stood in the assignment hall with 200 other cadets. She was small compared to most aliens around her. Her black hair was tied back in a simple knot. Her dark eyes watched everything. She was 22 years old, born in the Seoul province of Earth, and she was one of only 12 humans accepted into the academy that year. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had discovered faster-than-light travel only 30 years ago. Most alien species looked at them like children playing with dangerous toys. Weak, fragile, short-lived. That was what they called humans behind their backs, sometimes to their faces. The assignment ceremony was simple. Each cadet would be bonded with a creature. These were not pets. They were living weapons, engineered in laboratories across a dozen worlds. Some could breathe fire. Some could turn invisible. Some could tear through starship hulls with their claws. The bond between cadet and creature was meant to last a lifetime. Names were called one by one. Cadets stepped forward, received their assignments, and walked through different doors to meet their creatures. Some came back smiling. Some came back pale and shaking. Two did not come back at all. Once name was called, the hall went quiet. The officer reading the assignments paused. He looked at his screen, then looked at the screen again. His blue skin turned slightly purple, which meant he was nervous. "Cadet Park," he said slowly, "you have been assigned to Unit 77, the Wraith Hound." Whispers spread through the hall like fire. Did not understand at first. She saw the fear in the eyes of cadets around her. She saw some of them step away from her, as if death was already following her. Later she learned why. The Wraith Hound was a monster. It stood 2 meters tall at the shoulder, with 6 powerful legs and scales as black as the space between stars. Its eyes burned like melted copper. It had claws that could cut through armor and teeth that could crush bone. It was fast, silent, and completely without mercy. It had also killed 3 handlers before. The first handler lasted 6 minutes. The second lasted 4. The third had been a veteran soldier with 20 years of experience. He lasted 11 minutes before the Wraith Hound tore out his throat. High Commander watched from the observation deck above the hall. He was a tall alien with gray skin and eyes like chips of ice. He commanded the Dominion's forces at the Academy, and he had personally approved this assignment. He smiled as she walked toward the bonding chamber. Humans needed to learn their place, he thought. They were spreading too fast, gaining too much influence. A tragic training accident would remind Earth that the galaxy was not ready to accept them as equals. The bonding chamber was a large, circular room with walls made of reinforced glass. Observers could watch from outside, but nothing could hear through the thick walls. It was designed this way so that screams would not disturb the other cadets. Stepped inside. The door sealed behind her with a heavy click. The Wraith Hound was waiting. It stood in the shadows on the far side of the chamber, its copper eyes fixed on her. A low growl rumbled from its chest, so deep that felt it in her bones more than heard it with her ears. Every line of its body promised violence. Every sensor in the room showed the same thing. The creature's heart rate was elevated. Its muscles were ready to spring. Its aggression levels were at maximum. Was supposed to use the neural implant in her wrist to send commands. She was supposed to establish dominance, to show the creature that she was its master. That was how bonding worked. But did not raise her wrist. Instead, she sat down. She crossed her legs, placed her hands on her knees, and simply sat on the cold floor of the chamber. She did not speak. She did not move. She did not even look directly at the Wraith Hound. She just breathed, slow and steady, the way her grandmother had taught her during long meditation sessions back on Earth. The Wraith Hound did not understand. It circled her, growling. It snapped its jaws near her head. It slammed its tail against the floor hard enough to crack the metal, but did not flinch. She did not run. She did not scream. She waited. Hours passed. Outside, the observers grew restless. High Commander frowned, checking his timepiece again and again. The creature should have attacked by now. It always attacked. That was its nature. But the Wraith Hound did not attack. Slowly, so slowly that the cameras almost missed it, the creature stopped circling. It stood still, watching the small human who sat so calmly in its cage. It had never seen anything like this. Prey always ran. Prey always fought. Prey always smelled like fear. This human smelled like patience. As the 6th hour ended, the Wraith Hound lowered itself to the ground. It crawled forward on its belly, inch by inch, until its massive head rested on the floor next to Snee. Opened her eyes. Carefully, gently, she placed her hand on the creature's snout. It did not bite her. When the chamber doors finally opened, the extraction team rushed in with weapons ready. They stopped in shock at what they found. Park was asleep, her back resting against the Wraith Hound's warm flank. The creature's giant head lay across her lap, its copper eyes closed, its breathing slow and peaceful. The bond was formed. High Commander crushed his timepiece in his fist. 3 months passed on station. The seasons did not change in space, but felt the shift in other ways. She felt it in the way the Wraith Hound walked beside her through the metal corridors. She felt it in the way other cadets looked at her now, with something between fear and respect. She felt it in the growing warmth in her chest whenever she returned to her quarters and found the massive creature waiting for her. She had given him a name. It meant bear in Korean, the language of her childhood. The scientists and officers called him Unit 77, but only used that name on official documents. When they were alone, he was not supposed to respond to a name. He was a weapon, designed in a laboratory, built from genes taken from a dozen predator species across the galaxy. Weapons did not have names. Weapons did not have feelings. Weapons did not curl up at the foot of someone's bed and make soft, rumbling sounds when their ears were scratched. But did all of these things? The training programs did not know what to do with them. Other cadets struggled with their bonded creatures. They used neural implants to send commands directly into the animals' brains. They used electric shocks to punish disobedience. They used strict feeding schedules to maintain control through hunger. Used none of these methods. She talked too. She explained what she wanted, speaking in slow, simple words as if he could understand her. Perhaps he could. Perhaps he just understood her tone, her body language, the emotions that flowed through their bond. It did not matter. The result was the same. When asked to run, he ran. When she asked him to stop, he stopped. When she asked him to be gentle, he moved through obstacle courses like he was walking on clouds, never breaking a single training dummy. When she asked him to fight, he fought with terrifying power, but always stopped the moment she said the word. The training officers wrote confused reports. They ran tests on the bond, measuring the neural connection between human and creature. The numbers did not make sense. The bond was stronger than anything they had seen before, stronger than bonds between creatures and handlers who had worked together for 20 years. Watched all of this with worried eyes. Was closest friend at the academy. He was also human, recruited from the district the same year as. He was tall, with sharp features and a quick smile that hid his constant anxiety. His bonded creature was a spire hawk named, a beautiful bird with silver feathers and wings that could cut through steel. Was fast and deadly, but she was also well documented, well understood, and perfectly safe. Was none of these things. One evening, found in the observation deck, watching the stars while slept beside her with his head in her lap. She was running her fingers through the short fur behind his ears, and the creature was making that strange rumbling sound again, almost like purring. Sat down across from her, keeping a careful distance from the Wraith Hound. You need to be careful, he said quietly. Looked up, careful of what? Of getting too attached, glanced at. The commanders are watching you, they are always watching, and they do not like what they see. Frowned, what do they see? A human who has tamed their most dangerous weapon, a human who controls something they could never control. Leaned closer, lowering his voice. High Commander has requested your training records 3 times this month. He is looking for something, a mistake, a weakness, anything he can use against you. His hand paused on his ear. The creature opened one copper eye, sensing her sudden tension. I have done nothing wrong, she said. That does not matter to them, shook his head. We are humans, we are not supposed to succeed here. We are supposed to fail to prove that Earth is not ready for the galactic stage. When we succeed, it makes them afraid, and afraid people do dangerous things. Was quiet for a long moment. She looked down at his massive claws and powerful muscles, at the scars on his hide from battles fought before she ever met him. He was a weapon. Everyone told her this. The scientists, the officers, the other cadets. He was a tool built for killing, nothing more. But when she looked in his eyes, she saw something else. She saw trust. Had never trusted anyone before her. His previous handlers had tried to control him with pain and fear, and he had killed them for it, but had offered him something different: patience, kindness, respect. She had treated him not as a weapon but as a living thing with thoughts and feelings of his own. And he had responded. Now, when had nightmares about home, about her parents who had died in an accident when she was young, about the loneliness of being millions of light years from everything she knew, would press his warm body against her and rumble softly until she fell back asleep. Now, when other cadets mocked her in the corridors, calling her weak, calling her fragile, calling her a mistake, would rise to his full height and growl until they ran away. Now, when she walked through the station, she was never alone. He is not just a weapon, said finally. He is my friend. Sighed, he wanted to argue, but he could see it was pointless. Instead, he just nodded and reached out to squeeze her shoulder. Then protect each other, he said, because I think trouble is coming. High above them in the command center of the station, High Commander reviewed the final examination protocols. He made several changes to the schedule. He added several names to a classified contact list. He smiled his cold smile. The human girl thought she had won something. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The transport ship dropped them on 4 just before sunset. 4 was a jungle moon, covered in thick forests and dangerous wildlife. The trees grew so tall that their tops disappeared into the orange clouds. Strange animals screamed in the shadows. The air was thick and hot, hard to breathe for anyone not used to it. This was the final examination. 72 hours of survival. No help from the station. No communication with the outside world. Just cadets and their bonded creatures against whatever the jungle threw at them. Landed with her team in a small clearing. Was beside her, his spire hawk sitting on his shoulder, silver feathers catching the dying light. 2 other cadets made up the rest of their group. An alien with 4 arms named, bonded to a stone bear. Another alien with scales like emeralds named, bonded to a shadow serpent. They were a strong team on paper, but noticed how and kept their distance from. They trusted their own creatures. They did not trust hers. Fair enough, thought, had a reputation. The first day went smoothly. They found water. They built shelter. They took turns keeping watch while the others slept, hunted in the darkness and brought back enough meat to feed the whole team. He dropped the food at his feet like a gift and waited for her approval before eating his share. Watched this with confusion. Why does it do that? He asked. Why does it wait for you? Smiled. He respects me, I respect him. That is how it works. Shook his head. That is not how weapons work. The second day was harder. They were attacked by wild animals twice. Stone Bear took a wound to its side. Shadow Serpent disappeared for hours before coming back covered in something green and sticky. The jungle was testing them. But they were surviving. On the second night, everything changed. They had made camp in the ruins of an old structure, some kind of research station from decades ago, now covered in vines and moss. It offered protection from the rain that had started falling in heavy sheets. They ate their rations, talked about home, tried to keep their spirits up. Then the first plasma bolt hit the wall above's head. She threw herself to the ground as more bolts streaked through the darkness. Not animal attacks, not the jungle trying to kill them. These were weapons, military weapons. Someone was shooting at them. "Down!" shouted, pulling behind cover. Screamed and launched into the air, disappearing into the rain. Did not make it to cover. A bolt caught him in the chest and he dropped without a sound. His shadow serpent coiled around his body, hissing, but there was nothing it could do. Was dead. "What is happening?" screamed. "This is supposed to be a simulation." But these were not simulated enemies. These were real soldiers in real armor with real weapons designed to kill. Counted at least 8 of them moving through the trees. Professional formation. Professional equipment. This was an assassination. She knew it instantly. She did not know how or why, but she knew. Someone had sent these soldiers to kill them, and that someone had enough power to make it happen in the middle of a training exercise. Pressed against her side, his body vibrating with growls. He could feel her fear, but he did not run. He would never run without her. Pulled his emergency beacon. "I am sending a distress signal. We just need to survive until help comes." A bolt hit him in the shoulder before he could finish speaking. He cried out and dropped, the beacon falling from his hand. Dove from the sky, slashing at the soldier who had shot him, but another soldier caught the hawk with a net launcher and brought her down. Panicked, he ran into the jungle, his stone bear crashing after him, heard screams in the darkness, then silence. She was alone now. Alone with an injured friend and a beast that everyone said was a monster. The soldiers closed in, confident in their numbers. They had killed the others so easily. This small human girl would be no different. Then a voice came through the darkness. It crackled from speakers hidden somewhere, broadcast on a frequency that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Recognize the voice, High Commander." "Unit 77, the voice said. "Priority override Alpha." His body went stiff. His copper eyes flickered with something strange, something had never seen before. His muscles locked in place, and a terrible tremor ran through his body. "What is happening?" whispered. "Priority override Alpha," repeated, his voice cold and satisfied. "This is the kill command, Unit 77. Your programming demands obedience. Your programming demands blood." Understood now. The Wraith Hound had been designed by the Dominion. They had built into his brain commands buried so deep that no bond could reach them. Commands that could turn him against anyone, even someone he loved. "Kill the human designated Park," ordered. His claws extended, his lips pulled back from fangs that could tear through steel. A sound came from his throat that was not a growl but something worse, something mechanical, something forced. The soldiers stopped advancing. They were going to watch the monster kill the girl who thought she had tamed it. They were going to enjoy this. Looked at her friend, at the creature who had slept beside her every night for 3 months, who had protected her from loneliness and fear, who had shown her that even weapons could have hearts. She saw him fighting. Inside, behind those flickering copper eyes, she saw fighting against the command that was tearing him apart. She did not run. She stood up, looked into his eyes, and spoke. "I know you are in there. I know this is hard, but I trust you." The soldiers laughed. Lunged. Time seemed to stop. Saw his massive body flying through the air. She saw his claws extended, his mouth open, his copper eyes burning. She saw death coming for her, just as it had come for 3 handlers before her. but then twisted. His body turned in midair, spinning with impossible grace for something so large. Instead of hitting, he landed in front of her, his back to her chest, his 6 legs planted firmly in the mud. He was not attacking her. He was shielding her. The soldiers realized what was happening too late. They opened fire, plasma bolts screaming through the rain, but was already there. His body absorbed the first wave of shots. The bolts burned into his black scales, leaving smoking wounds across his shoulders and flanks. He roared in pain but did not move. He did not take a single step away from. More bolts came. More wounds opened. His blood was hot against his hands, against her face, against the cold ground beneath them. She could feel his body shaking from the damage, but still he stood. Still he protected her. One of the soldiers shouted a command. They were going to rush forward to finish the job at close range. They had not expected the beast to resist its programming, but they had numbers and weapons. They could still complete their mission. Did not let them. He charged. It was not the cold, calculated attack of a weapon following orders. It was something wilder, something born from rage and pain and love. Hit the first soldier like a black storm, his claws tearing through armor as if it were paper. The man screamed and fell and was already moving to the next one. Plasma bolts hit him again and again. His body took damage that would have killed any normal creature 10 times over. But Wraith Hounds were not normal creatures. They were built to survive, to endure, to keep fighting even when their bodies were broken. And had something more than his engineering. He had a reason to fight. 3 soldiers went down in the first 10 seconds. The others tried to fall back to regroup, but did not give them time. He moved through the jungle like a shadow made of fury, his roars shaking the trees, his claws painting the rain red. Watched it all from behind the fallen wall where had left her. She wanted to help, but there was nothing she could do. She was just a human, small and weak, exactly what the galaxy had always said she was. But she could see something the soldiers could not. She could see that was dying. His movements were getting slower. His breathing was getting harder. Too many wounds, too much blood lost. He was winning the fight, but he was paying for every victory with pieces of himself. The last soldier tried to run, caught him at the edge of the clearing, pinning him to the ground with one massive paw. For a moment, the soldier stared up at the monster above him, waiting for death. Then collapsed. He fell onto his side, his legs giving out beneath him. His copper eyes were dim now, barely glowing in the darkness. His breath came in short, wet gasps. He had won, but the cost was too high. Ran to him. She fell to her knees in the mud beside his head, her hands pressing against his wounds, trying to stop the bleeding even though she knew it was hopeless. There was too much damage, too much loss. Even a Wraith Hound could not survive this. She whispered, tears mixing with the rain on her face. "Stay with me, please stay with me." The creature's eyes found hers. Slowly, painfully, he dragged his body closer to her. His massive head came to rest on her lap just like the first day in the bonding chamber. Just like every night when she had nightmares. Just like always. He had chosen. The kill command was still echoing in his brain. Could see it in the way his muscles twitched, in the flicker behind his eyes. His programming was still screaming at him to attack, to kill, to obey the orders buried in his very cells. But had found something stronger than programming. He had found love. Crawled out from behind the rubble, clutching his wounded shoulder. He stared at the bodies of the soldiers. He stared at the Wraith Hound lying in his arms. He stared at the blood that covered everything. How, he asked, his voice barely a whisper. How did he do that? How did he resist? Did not look up. She was stroking snout, running her fingers over his scales, memorizing every detail of his face. "He chose," she said simply. "He chose me." His hand shook as he picked up the emergency beacon. The signal was still transmitting. Help would come, but would it come in time? did not care about help. She did not care about the soldiers or the mission or what would happen next. She only cared about the creature in her lap, the friend who had given everything to protect her. "You are so brave," she told him, her voice breaking. "You are the bravest thing I have ever known. Please do not leave me, please." His eyes were closing. His breathing was getting slower, but he pressed his head against her hand one more time, a gesture that needed no words. "I am here," it said. "I will always be here." The rain kept falling. The jungle was quiet now, the screams and gunfire faded into memory, and somewhere far above them, in the cold metal corridors of station, High Commander was realizing that his plan had failed. The monster had not killed the girl. The monster had saved her. And nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The rescue ships arrived 3 hours later. They found exactly where she had been all night, sitting in the mud and blood with his head in her lap. She had not moved. She had not stopped talking to him, whispering stories about Earth, about her childhood and soul, about the grandmother who had taught her to meditate. She talked until her voice was raw because she was afraid that if she stopped, he would stop too. The medical teams rushed forward with equipment and stretchers. They tried to pull away from the creature, but she refused to let go. In the end, they had to work around her, treating his wounds while she held his paw in her hands. "He is alive," one of the medics said, surprise clear in his voice. "Barely, but alive." Finally let herself cry. The journey back to station took 6 hours, was kept in the critical care unit, connected to machines that pumped blood and medicine into his damaged body. The doctors said he should have died a dozen times over. The wounds were too severe. The blood loss was too great. No creature should have survived what he went through. But was not just any creature. Stayed with the whole time. His shoulder was bandaged, his arm in a sling, but he refused to leave her side. He brought her food she did not eat. He brought her water she barely touched. He sat with her in silence when she had no more words to give. On the second day, the questions began. Officers came to her hospital room with recording devices. They asked her what happened on 4. They asked about the soldiers, about the attack, about the kill command that had been broadcast to his neural implant. Told them everything. She told them about High Commander. She told them about the assassination attempt disguised as a training exercise. She told them about how had resisted his own programming to save her life. The officers did not believe her at first. It was impossible, they said. Wraith hounds could not resist kill commands. That was the whole point of the programming. That was what made them reliable weapons. But then they reviewed the footage. Every bonded creature was equipped with recording devices. Every moment of the examination had been captured from multiple angles. The officers watched receive the kill command. They watched his body prepare to attack. They watched him twist at the last possible moment, placing himself between and the plasma bolts. They watched him choose. The tribunal was held 2 weeks later, after was stable enough to survive without machines. High Commander stood before the Galactic Council, his gray face carefully blank. He had prepared his defense. He had documents proving that the soldiers were acting without authorization. He had witnesses ready to swear that he knew nothing of the assassination attempt. But then Commander of the Human Diplomatic Corps stood up. Was a small man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had served Earth in the diplomatic service for 30 years. He had negotiated treaties, prevented wars, and built bridges between humanity and 100 alien species. He was not a soldier. He was not a fighter. But he was very, very good at finding the truth. "I present to the Council," said calmly, "the complete communication records from High Commander's personal channels." His face went pale. The evidence was undeniable. Messages to mercenary commanders, payments to weapons dealers, a detailed plan to kill the human cadets and blame it on the dangerous Wraith Hound that should never have been assigned to them in the first place. It was all there, every word, every credit, every lie. The verdict was swift, was stripped of his rank, his titles, and his honor. He was exiled to a prison colony on the far edge of known space, where he would spend the rest of his long life in darkness and silence. But that was not the most important thing that happened that day. The most important thing was the murmur that spread through the council chambers. Representatives from 100 species leaned close to each other, whispering in languages that did not understand. But she understood the meaning. They had all seen the footage. They had all watched a weapon resist its programming through nothing but willpower and love. They had all witnessed something that should have been impossible. And they had seen that it was a human who made it happen. Not through strength, not through technology, not through dominance or fear. A human had earned the loyalty of a monster through patience, kindness, and respect. A human had created a bond that even galactic engineering could not break. The whispers spread from the council to the stations, from the stations to the colonies, from the colonies to worlds that had never heard of Earth before. Humans, the galaxy began to say, were different. Recovered slowly. The veterinary specialist said he would carry scars forever. His left side would always ache in cold weather. He would never be as fast as he once was. Did not care about any of this. She spent every night on the floor of the medical bay, sleeping beside him on a thin mattress she had dragged from her quarters. The doctors complained. The officers complained, even complained, but would not leave. He stayed with me, she told them all. Now I stay with him. On the day was cleared for release, was waiting at the door of the medical bay. She had brought his favorite treats, dried meat from the human mess hall, the same kind she had used to earn his trust in those first difficult weeks. The door opened and walked out. He was thinner than before. His scales had new marks on them, pale lines where the plasma bolts had burned through. His copper eyes were tired. But when he saw, his tail began to wag. It was such a simple thing, such a small thing, but it made laugh through her tears because she had never seen him do it before. He was not just a weapon anymore. He was not just a monster or a creature or a unit with a number. He was her friend. Pressed his massive head against her chest, and she wrapped her arms around him as far as they would go. "Good boy," she whispered, "let us go home." They walked out of the medical bay together, the small human and the massive beast. Cadets stopped to stare. Officers stepped aside. Even the aliens who had once called humans weak and fragile now looked at them with something new in their eyes. Respect. High above them, in an office that had once belonged to, the new commander of station watched the footage of and walking through the corridors. He was an old soldier from a species that had seen 10,000 wars. He had watched civilizations rise and fall. He had seen empires crumble and new ones take their place. But he had never seen anything like this. A weapon that chose love over programming. A bond that could not be broken. A human who had proved that strength was not always about power. Sometimes it was about heart. The commander smiled and closed the footage. The galaxy, he thought, had better get used to humans. They were just getting started.